Hey everyone, just wanted to wrap up the videos this week by taking a look at some new spoilers. Just recorded a bunch of the Fast Effect segments, and there were a few of these that I thought were pretty cool, so we're just going to go through them pretty quick. Sublime Epiphany, a whole bunch of modes on this. Reminds me of Cryptic Command. Probably don't want to make this one a textless reward. Countering spells, activated abilities, returning permanents. This is the type of card that could create all sorts of chaos in Commander, and that mana cost means that's probably the only place where that'll happen. Animal Sanctuary, what a charming card. Paying 2 to put a +1/+1 counter on a bird, cat, dog, goat, ox, or snake. I mean, it's certainly flavorful, and I'd imagine any on-theme Commander deck will be happy to run that in place of one of the many other lands. Scavenging Ooze gets a reprint, and any of the reprints that haven't been in Pioneer or Modern before are very interesting. This one is a pretty interesting take on the art, and it's a really powerful effect, good enough to main deck and Legacy on occasion. Library Larcenist. This is a card that I like because it's just fun the way it works. Do they have a trick? Do they not have a trick? You literally don't know when they attack. They could just draw into it, and something that'll be really interesting in Limited. And, you know, I'd like to see a slightly bigger backside. If that was a 1/3, I'd feel pretty good about it. As it is, 3 mana for a 1/2, not the most exciting thing, but certainly fun to be able to attack and then see where things go. The Speaker of the Heavens. This has Commander written all over it. 1 mana, 1/1, Vigilance, Lifelink. Doesn't seem like that big a deal, but it's got a monster activated ability of tapping to create a 4/4 White Angel token with flying. Of course, you can only activate that if you have at least 7 more life than your starting life total, and it's only done as a sorcery. There's a lot of cards in this set that work with Intruder Alarm. I'll be interested to see what happens with the price of that card. Just the ability to tap to make 4/4, just infinite guys. That could happen super fast. And Intruder Alarm's pretty good card on its own, in the fact that it just keeps everything tapped down unless another creature comes out. Griffin Airy. At the beginning of your end step, if you've gained 3 or more life, create a 2/2 white Griffin. Type of card that control decks can just really drag out games and just create a overwhelming advantage. Gaining life off of something like Ivory Tower if you're playing with older cards in a casual setting. Of course, lifelink and so many other ways to gain life. And this one gives you that nice upside at only 2 mana, and enchantments are not the easiest thing to remove. Garruk Unleashed. Really, really cool Planeswalker art in these sets. This particular Garruk at 4 mana does some things. As the +1, up to 1 target creature gets +3/+3, and Trample is going to be able to push through some serious damage, potentially clearing opposing Planeswalkers, certainly large chunks of your opponent's life. -2 creates a 3/3 beast, and then potentially in a multiplayer setting, if somebody has more creatures than you, you put a loyalty counter, effectively just removing 1 loyalty overall. And then the -7 does probably win the game. It allows you to tutor up and get a creature card directly into the battlefield. A super powerful effect there. Silver Smoke Ghoul. At the beginning of your end step, again, if you've gained 3 or more life, this time the ghoul comes back from the graveyard to the battlefield, and you can also pay 2 mana and sack it to draw a card. This is a gross card for Limited, creating incredible value, either trading or just drawing cards. So any type of life gain is going to be really rewarded with that type of extra value. Thieves Guild Enforcer. This is a fun one. Mill is a strategy that I think lives and dies by the commons and uncommons in the set. You can't really have a mill strategy based off of just a rare in Limited, because if you don't draw it, your deck's not going to work. But if they've got some good common and uncommon mill cards to go along with this, that could definitely be a crown jewel in a mill deck, something at the pre-release that could be very memorable to sleeve up. I remember back in the Gate Crash pre-release, I had 2 decks, Boros and then Dimir. And game 1, I'd play Dimir. It was a mill deck, and then games 2 and, well, there was actually almost only game 2. I swept almost every match. My opponent would then sideboard in a bunch of extra cards, which is the common counter to milling in a limited format. You basically put in your playable creatures, a bunch of extra lands, and it makes it so much harder for them to actually mill you out. And then I would just switch to my Boros deck. There were no overlapping cards whatsoever, and the Boros deck was just super aggressive. Either one of the decks was good enough to win a pre-release, but just that 1-2 punch after they had sabotaged their deck was just brutal. Let's see here. Unsubstantiate, returning a spell or creature to its owner's hand, is actually a pretty solid effect for 2 mana. I don't know how much more you want. You're returning the card to their hand. If they're sinking a ton of mana into it, that's a really big tempo swing. And if you've got the card advantage to support this, because of course it is card disadvantage, you're using a card and it just puts it back in their hand. If your deck can support that, this is a very versatile answer, and I would not be surprised if this sees constructed play at all. Just highlighting the art of the forest. I believe all of these basic lands are made to represent the home planes of the planeswalkers that they're associated with, so I believe this is supposed to tie into Garrick's home plane. Has a really nice savage feel to it, looking up at the trees, and I think they're doing a good job with these. Even if you don't like them, I think it's great that they've got the options. I love the idea of people being able to have a true customization for their decks and not just have just a handful of cool basics, but just tons of options. I'm on board. Niambi, Esteemed Speaker. This one seems like a solid card for trickier commander decks. At 2 mana with Flash, you can pretty well get that onto the board whenever you want, and then when she enters the battlefield, you can bounce another creature to your hand and gain some life. So you can respond to removal, you can respond to a board sweeper, you can do all sorts of things with this card. But if it sticks around, you can also discard a legendary card to draw 2 cards, something that can potentially pull you really far ahead. That can be played at any speed, and I think this is an interesting card for Commander. People may have some fun with that, bouncing creatures and replaying them. Of course, can be a lot of fun in Commander. So many good enter the battlefields ability. Subira Tulzidi Caravaner is a creature with haste for 3 mana, legendary, so this could be a commander or just at home in a commander deck. It's got a couple of activated abilities. One, to make the creature with power 2 or less not be blockable this turn. And on the other hand, you can pay 2 mana and tap it, discard your hand until end of turn. Whenever a creature you control with power 2 or less deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. This could possibly see play in some of the shenanigan combo decks that can create kind of continual exponential waves of attackers. Some of those decks may actually need some additional help once they get rolling. If they can get some card drawing involved as well, that could allow them to keep things going. Of course, some of those decks just actually go infinite on that first attack, but it's possible that this could be part of a larger combo, and I'd imagine people will have fun building around this new legendary card. Experimental Overload at 4 mana, creating a XX blue and red weird creature token, where X is the number of instants or sorceries in your graveyard, and then you get to return an instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hand. This card, I think, will definitely see play at casual tables. It's pretty easy to have instants and sorceries in your deck. I mean, you can play just absolute tons of them, and I mean, you can play more instants and sorceries in your deck than you can lands, really. So this, in a deck that's built around it, Commander deck could be very happy to get a absolutely giant, 40/40 token for only 4 mana and potentially return a card from your graveyard that could give it haste or give you an extra turn. So I would not be surprised to see this in Commander decks. Discontinuity, 6 mana, end the turn. That is essentially a time warp effect for single player games. Of course, in multiplayer, not nearly as good, but if you're in a 2-player game and you end their turn, it's your turn. And you can also play that on your turn, and it costs 4 less. So this is a pretty interesting card. I think we're going to see a card soon in this slideshow that will combo with it, but the ability to stop detrimental triggers, potentially stopping your opponent's end step effects. So if somebody end of turn, fact or fiction, never mind, get out of here for 2 mana. That is an interesting counter with some versatility there and being a time warp in the late game. Transmorgify. Polymorph is back, this time as red. Happens to be in standard with a red land, Dwarven something. Let me know in the comments. But there's definitely a card in Throne of Eldraine that will combo with this. We'll see. We'll see what we can actually go. You can have a largely creatureless deck with some token generation and abuse this to always get the fatty that you're looking for. We've seen it in the past in blue, and now it's come back around in red. Sanctums. These are crazy. We've got Sanctum of All, which is what you're kind of hoping to pull together. This is the rare. The rest of them are uncommon. These Sanctums are really interesting. This Sanctum of All, at the beginning of your upkeep, you can search your library or graveyard for a shrine and put it onto the battlefield. That can save you a ton of mana. And then if an ability or shrine you control triggers while you have 6 or more shrines, trigger that ability an additional time. Now, they're all legendary, so you're going to need to get an awful lot of things going on to make that work. Perhaps just getting Shrine of All and then pulling them together. Those will come back around shortly. We've got Spore Web Weaver, a reach hexproof from blue. Whenever it's dealt damage, you gain a life and create a 1/1 green Saproling creature token. That's the type of thing that can generate a pretty big advantage with some shenanigans. Overall, probably not the most exciting card to build around. I would have liked it more, I think, if it made more spiders to kind of have a spider feel for it, but it's making Saprolinks, and it's pretty much a casual card as far as I can tell. Glorious Anthem, a Crusade reprint, except all creatures you control get +1/+1 for 3 mana, and not too much to say about that one. That is a reprint that casual players have enjoyed. I think Honor the Pure and Crusade probably at 2 mana are a much stronger effect. I think they even printed a time-shifted, or what were they calling that? The green version, like Gaia's Anthem at 3 mana. 3 mana without a body is a bit much for that effect. Talking about value to mana cost, a 4/3 here for 3 mana, hexproof from black, making it difficult to remove. And then whenever Garruk's Harbinger deals damage to a player or planeswalker, look at that many cards from the top of your library. You can reveal a creature card or Garruk planeswalker and put it into your hand. The rest go on the bottom. So essentially, you're possibly just drawing a card every turn with this, but it's also beating down for 4. I actually think this card is fine. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see this seeing play in mid-range decks, a source of card advantage, reasonable stats, slightly difficult to deal with. In the right meta, this could be quite a threat. Now we've got the Sanctums. Hopefully they're lumped together here. We've got the Sanctum of Tranquil Light, tapping creatures, scaling better with each creature you control. Fruitful Harvest, adding mana. Sanctum of Calm Waters, which is going to be drawing and discarding. Note that if you have more than 1 shrine, now you're actually netting card advantage. And then, is that all of them? There might be another one in there. The Sanctums overall are a interesting build-around idea. We've had shrines in the past from Apocalypse. I don't know. I think that people will play with them, have some fun. Super difficult to pull off and limited. We'll see what happens with them. I think most of them are a little out of range in terms of how much they're costed at, but the type of deck that I can definitely see people playing casually. If we want to talk about effective mana costs, this is it. 1 mana, counter target instant or sorcery unless its controller pays 3. That is a very powerful card, in contention with a ton of other 1 mana counters. This is definitely a card to consider when you're looking at Spell Pierce or Flusterstorm. Flusterstorm is always going to be at least 2. They play a spell, you play the Flusterstorm. So this very specifically is only if there's been no other cards cast. How often that is going to be the case will determine whether or not Miscast ever sees any play in a format where Flusterstorm is legal. Garrick's Uprising. When this enters the battlefield, you draw a card. If you have a creature with power 4 or greater, gives all your guys trample, and also sets up a draw engine for whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control. At only 3 mana, I think that could see a lot of casual play, could definitely fit into some different commander decks as well. And Conspicuous Snoop. This guy is crazy. You play with the top card of your library revealed. You can cast goblins from the top of your library, and as long as the top card of your library is a goblin, he has all the activated abilities of that card. I mean, Krenko, Kiki Jiki, you name it. There are a ton of ways to abuse this guy. Boggart Harbinger can tutor up cards to the top of your library. Of course, Goblin Recruiter is the best there is at that. I expect this guy will be played. I expect he will actually be solid compared to many of the other goblins that we've gotten our hopes up over the years. And let me know what you think about this guy. This is probably the most exciting one. I'll stop here, but let me know what you think about this guy and the other cards that we went over today. I'm leaning toward doing a full spoiler once this all comes out. This set is turning out to be, I believe, the greatest core set that they've done in the modern era. So I'm going to want to take a look at all of the cards anyways. If you guys want to go along on that journey with me, let me know in the comments and we can make that happen. That is all for this one, but don't worry, there is a lot more. You can check out our older videos, and we're always putting out new videos from ELD's Time Vault Games in Bellingham, Massachusetts. If you want to help the channel, of course, you can like, subscribe, share, tap that notification bell so you can know the next time our new videos come out. Thanks for watching.